In the dense forests of North America, a legend has lingered for centuries. Among towering pines and mist-covered valleys, countless people claim to have encountered a towering figure, part human, part beast, known as Bigfoot. Reports describe a creature standing up to 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders, long arms, and covered in dark hair. Enormous footprints, some measuring over 24 inches, have been found pressed deep into mud and snow, fueling the belief that something unexplained may roam these remote landscapes. The stories are not limited to modern times. Indigenous oral traditions across the continent speak of large, wild beings that lived alongside humans, watching from the shadows of the forest. In the 20th century, sightings multiplied, reaching a peak with the famous 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film in California. The brief clip, showing a figure striding across a clearing, remains one of the most debated pieces of footage in cryptozoology. Scientists point to bears, hoaxes, and human imagination as likely explanations. Yet eyewitnesses, hunters, hikers, even law enforcement officers insist their encounters were real. Hair samples, audio recordings of eerie howls, and plaster casts of oversized tracks continue to surface, each one adding to the puzzle. And so the mystery remains. Is Bigfoot a lost species, a relic of prehistory hidden in the wilderness, or merely the reflection of humanity's fascination with the unknown? As the forests grow darker and the wind moves through the trees, the question still lingers. What might be watching from just beyond the light? High in the frozen peaks of the Himalayas, a legend moves silently across the snow. Known to local cultures as the Métis and to the world as the Yeti, this mysterious figure has become one of the most enduring enigmas of the mountains. For generations, Sherpa communities have spoken of a towering, ape-like being that inhabits the most remote and treacherous regions. Its presence is often marked not by direct encounters, but by massive footprints, pressed deep into the snow where no ordinary traveler could have left them. Western interest surged in the early 20th century, when explorers and climbers, including members of British expeditions to Everest, returned with stories of strange tracks far above the tree line. In 1951, mountaineer Eric Shipton photographed a series of enormous prints in the snow images that quickly captured worldwide attention and cemented the Yeti's place in modern mystery. Scientists have attempted to solve the riddle. Some suggest misidentified bears. Others point to the psychological effects of altitude and isolation. DNA testing on alleged Yeti hair and bone has often revealed more mundane origins, linking them to known animals of the region. Yet, the legend endures, nourished by cultural tradition, witness accounts, and the deep, untouched wilderness of the Himalayas. The Yeti remains a figure suspended between folklore and biology. Perhaps it is only a story passed down through the generations, or perhaps, somewhere among the glaciers and silent ridges, something unknown still leaves its footprints in the snow. Deep in the swamps and tangled wetlands of Florida, a legend stirs among the cypress trees. Known as the skunk ape, this elusive creature has been described as a large, ape-like figure with dark hair, glowing eyes, and a powerful odor that gives it its unusual name. Sightings date back centuries, with Native American accounts describing a wild man of the swamps long before European settlers arrived. In modern times, reports intensified during the 1960s and 1970s, when residents across Florida and the southeastern United States claimed to see a towering figure moving through the marshes. Hunters, fishermen, and even law enforcement officers reported encounters, many describing a smell so pungent it lingered long after the creature had vanished. Photographs and video footage have occasionally surfaced, though most remain disputed. One of the most famous pieces of evidence came in the year 2000, when an anonymous woman sent photographs to a local sheriff's office in Sarasota. The images, showing what appeared to be a large primate hidden among palmetto fronds, reignited debate over the skunk ape's existence. Scientists often suggest misidentifications of bears or even escaped exotic animals could explain the sightings. Yet, the Florida Everglades, vast, dense, and difficult to navigate, still conceal much of their secrets. With over 1 million acres of wilderness, the possibility of an undiscovered species is not entirely dismissed. Today, the skunk ape remains a cultural icon of the region, half folklore and half biological mystery. And as the wetlands grow quiet at dusk, one cannot help but wonder, is the legend nothing more than swamp-born imagination, or is something watching just beyond the mangroves? Across the rugged landscapes of Australia, from dense eucalyptus forests to remote mountain ranges, stories persist of a mysterious figure known as the Yowie. Described as a towering, ape-like creature, often standing over 7 feet tall, the Yowie has become one of the continent's most enduring legends. Indigenous Australian traditions speak of wild, hairy beings that roamed the land long before European settlement. These accounts, passed down through generations, often describe the Yowie as both feared and respected a guardian of nature, yet capable of instilling terror when encountered. When colonists arrived in the 19th century, they too began reporting sightings of strange, man-like creatures in the bush, lending further weight to the folklore. In modern times, reports have surfaced from Queensland to New South Wales. Witnesses describe deep, echoing howls in the night, enormous footprints pressed into the earth, and fleeting glimpses of a powerful figure moving just beyond the tree line. Some accounts suggest a foul odor accompanies the creature, echoing reports of its North American counterpart, Bigfoot. Explanations vary. Skeptics point to misidentified wildlife, such as kangaroos or feral humans living in isolation. Others suggest the Yowie could be a surviving remnant of an ancient primate species hidden in Australia's vast and often inaccessible wilderness. Yet, despite the investigations, no conclusive evidence has ever been produced. The Yowie remains a shadowed presence in Australian lore, part folklore, part cryptozoological puzzle. And as night falls across the outback, with its vast stretches of darkness and silence, the question lingers. Could something ancient still be walking these lands, hidden just out of sight? Deep in the mist-covered jungles of Sumatra, local traditions tell of a small, elusive creature known as the orang pendek. Unlike the towering legends of Bigfoot or the Yeti, this figure is said to stand no taller than 5 feet, walking upright, with powerful limbs and a body covered in short, dark hair. For centuries, the people of Sumatra have spoken of the orang pendek as a real presence in their forests. Hunters, farmers, and villagers recount encounters with a human-like figure that vanishes swiftly into the undergrowth. The name itself translates to short person, hinting at its distinct form compared to other ape-like cryptids. Western interest grew during the early 20th century, when Dutch colonists and explorers began documenting reports of a mysterious bipedal creature. In more recent decades, researchers and cryptozoologists have traveled into the Kerinci Seblat National Park, collecting accounts, footprint casts, and even strands of hair that some claim do not match known species. Theories about the orang pendek are varied. Some believe it could be a surviving species of early hominin, perhaps related to Homo floresiensis, the so-called hobbit, discovered on the neighboring island of Flores. Others suggest misidentified gibbons or sun bears may account for the sightings. Still, the consistency of descriptions across cultures and generations keeps the mystery alive. Today, the dense rainforests of Sumatra remain one of the least explored regions on Earth, offering cover for countless undiscovered species. And within that wilderness, the question endures: is the Orang Pendek a legend shaped by human imagination, or a living remnant of our own ancient past? In the vast expanse of the Amazon rainforest, where sunlight barely reaches the forest floor, legends speak of a formidable creature known as the Mapinguari. Towering up to 10 feet tall, covered in thick, matted hair, and reeking of decay, this being is said to roam the jungle, leaving fear and mystery in its wake. Indigenous tribes of the Amazon have passed down stories of the Mapinguari for generations. Descriptions often portray it as a massive, sloth-like beast with claws strong enough to tear down trees, a single glaring eye, and, in some accounts, a gaping mouth set in the middle of its torso. The creature's cry, said to echo like a thunderous roar, is described as enough to paralyze those who hear it. Western explorers and naturalists began recording accounts of the Mapinguari in the 19th century, often treating it as myth. Yet some cryptozoologists have suggested it could represent a surviving population of giant ground sloths, prehistoric creatures that disappeared thousands of years ago, but whose remains have been found across South America. Others view the legend as a blend of folklore and misidentified wildlife, exaggerated by the mystery of the rainforest itself. The Amazon remains one of the least explored regions on Earth, with new species discovered every year. In that untouched wilderness, the line between myth and reality often blurs. And so, the Mapinguari persists a guardian of the forest to some, a terrifying predator to others. As the jungle stretches endlessly into shadow, the question endures: is the Mapinguari only a story, or a relic of prehistory still walking among the trees? Across the rugged mountains and remote valleys of Central Asia, tales persist of a mysterious being known as the Alma. Unlike the towering giants of Bigfoot or the Yeti, the Alma is described as more human-like, smaller in stature, covered in coarse hair, and said to walk with a deliberate, upright gait. The legend stretches back centuries. Local folklore in Mongolia and the Caucasus speaks of wild, human-shaped creatures who live apart from society, inhabiting caves, forests, and desolate mountain slopes. Early travelers through the region recorded stories of these beings, often describing them not as spirits or monsters, but as physical, flesh and blood entities. During the 19th and 20th centuries, Russian explorers and ethnographers gathered detailed accounts of the Alma. Villagers described encounters with strong, primitive figures who communicated through grunts or gestures, and who seemed to live on berries, roots, and small game. Some stories even tell of Almas captured and observed, though such reports remain unverified and steeped in mystery. Scientists who have studied the accounts propose several possibilities. Some argue that Alma may be a cultural memory of Neanderthals or other archaic humans, preserved in oral tradition. Others suggest misidentified hermits or feral humans could explain the sightings. Yet, in the isolated mountains of Mongolia and the Caucasus, where vast stretches of land remain largely unexplored, the possibility of something undiscovered lingers. The Alma stands at a curious crossroads, part cryptid, part anthropological puzzle. Could it represent a living relic of humanity's distant past, hidden in the highlands? Or is it only a reflection of our enduring fascination with what might still walk just beyond the edge of civilization? In the remote forests that surround Japan's Mount Hiba, witnesses speak of a strange and elusive creature known as the Hibagon. Unlike the towering giants of North America or the Himalayas, this figure is described as shorter, about 5 feet tall, with dark hair, piercing eyes, and a face said to resemble a cross between ape and human. The first widely reported sightings began in the early 1970s, when locals near Hiroshima Prefecture claimed to see a bipedal figure moving swiftly through the trees. It was said to leave behind large footprints, broad and human-like, yet larger than those of an average person. In some accounts, the creature carried an intense odor, and its eyes glowed red when caught in the light. Japanese newspapers at the time published reports of multiple encounters, and the Hibagon quickly became a cultural curiosity, sometimes described as Japan's answer to Bigfoot. Unlike its Western counterpart, however, it was often portrayed as smaller, almost pitiable, a lonely figure wandering the deep forests of Hiba. Explanations range from misidentified animals, such as Japanese macaques glimpsed under unusual conditions, to the possibility of an unknown primate species surviving in the region's dense woodland. Skeptics point to the burst of sightings during a relatively short period as evidence of mass hysteria or folklore amplified by modern media. Yet the Hibagon has never fully vanished from Japan's collective imagination. And as the forests of Mount Hiba grow quiet in the evening mist, the question lingers. Was it only illusion and rumor, or does something unknown still walk among the cedars? In the rolling hills and wooded valleys of Ohio, stories have long circulated of a mysterious creature known as the Grassman. Described as a massive, ape-like figure covered in coarse hair, it is said to stand 7 to 9 feet tall, its presence marked by deep footprints and unsettling encounters in the wilderness. The earliest reports trace back to indigenous traditions and pioneer accounts, where tales of wild men living in the forests were passed down through generations. By the 19th century, settlers described large, bipedal figures stealing livestock or watching from the edges of fields. Unlike Bigfoot legends of the Pacific Northwest, the Ohio Grassman gained its name from reports of crude huts or nests woven from tall grass, suggesting a creature that builds and inhabits structures. In modern times, sightings continue, particularly around the state's rural farmlands and wooded preserves. Witnesses speak of glowing eyes, guttural growls, and the unnerving sensation of being followed just beyond the tree line. Plaster casts of oversized footprints have surfaced, though none provide definitive proof. Explanations range from misidentified black bears to folklore magnified by imagination. Some researchers note the consistency of eyewitness reports across decades, raising the possibility of an undiscovered primate or relic hominin lingering in the Midwest's secluded woodlands. The Grassman remains one of Ohio's most enduring legends, a figure both feared and respected by those who claim to have seen it. And as night falls over the fields and forests, the mystery endures. Is the Grassman only a tale born from the rustling of grass in the wind, or a hidden presence that still walks the land? In the swamps and thick woodlands of Miller County, Arkansas, a legend has taken root. Known as the Fook Monster, this creature is said to be a towering, hairy, bipedal figure that has haunted the small town of Fook for decades. The first widely publicized encounter occurred in 1971, when a local family reported being attacked by a massive, red-eyed creature at their rural home. Their account, combined with subsequent sightings of large footprints and eerie howls echoing through the night, quickly drew media attention. Newspapers across the region picked up the story, and soon, Fook became synonymous with its mysterious inhabitant. Eyewitnesses typically describe the Fook monster as standing between 7 and 8 feet tall, with long arms, a foul odor, and a speed and agility that allows it to vanish quickly into the surrounding swamps. Unlike the more elusive tales of Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, this creature was said to have been aggressive, sometimes approaching homes and livestock. The phenomenon became so ingrained in local culture that it inspired a 1972 docudrama, The Legend of Boggy Creek, which introduced the Fook monster to audiences far beyond Arkansas. While skeptics argue the sightings could be explained by bears, hoaxes, or exaggerated folklore, the consistency of reports from farmers, hunters, and residents keeps the mystery alive. To this day, visitors still travel to Fook, hoping to glimpse the creature that has become both a local symbol and a cultural enigma. And as the swamp grows still at night, one can't help but wonder, does the Fook monster remain hidden in the shadows, or is it only a story that refuses to fade?